Hallo, guten Abend zusammen da draußen. Liebe Taucher, liebe Meeresfreunde, liebe Enthusiasten für Haie und die Unterwasserwelt. Ich freue mich sehr, Sie heute Abend zu diesem besonderen Abend begrüßen zu dürfen. Und ich hoffe, dass wir ganz viele Gäste live dabei haben, hier auf Zoom, aber auch auf der Livestream von SHARKPROJECT auf Facebook. Ja, Titel dieses Abends: Notruf für den Makohai. It's make or break for Mako. Das ist das Thema unseres Abends. Und es wird ein besonderer Abend werden, das kann ich jetzt schon versprechen. Mein Name ist Iris Ziegler von SHARKPROJECT. Ich leite dort die International Cooperation Abteilung und freue mich heute Abend mit Ihnen ganz besondere Gäste begrüßen zu dürfen. Aber erst noch mal kurz zum Thema. Isurus oxyrhynchus. Wer kennt diesen Hai? Die allerwenigsten wohl, wenn wir ehrlich sind. Den großen Weißen, den kennt wohl jeder. Aber diesen Hochseewanderer, im Übrigen der schnellste Hai unserer Meere, den hat selten einer zu Gesicht bekommen. Und gerade deswegen ist es wahrscheinlich auch, dass wir so wenig über seine Situation, seinen Notstand wissen, und das direkt vor unserer Haustür. Ja, so viel zur Einführung. Und ich wollte nur kurz auch nochmal zusammenfassen for our guests who speak English, and I'm not sure who else outside of Germany is following this live transmission on Zoom or on Facebook. Welcome also to all ocean enthusiasts, and I appreciate that you are joining us despite this being a German webinar, but you will see most of the interesting information and the best talks, they're all in English. So you should also have fun. And if there's questions, please also feel free to ask them in your English mother tongue, and we will respond either in German or English, whatever you prefer. Thank you very much and looking forward to have you here. Ja, meine lieben Freunde, und ich hoffe, es ist okay, dass ich einfach jetzt mal zum Du übergehe, wie das im Tauchermetier so üblich ist. Es hat auch noch einen anderen Grund. Wir werden diese Veranstaltung aufzeichnen, damit sie auch später noch verfügbar ist. Und von daher, wenn Fragen gestellt werden, bitte immer nur den Vornamen nennen, dass wir eben aus Datenschutzgründen da uns nicht in die Petouille bringen. Ich hatte es schon erwähnt, ich habe ganz besondere Gäste bei mir für diesen Abend, für den Mako, aber auch mit dem Mako. Muss natürlich sein, dass der Hauptdarsteller mit von der Partie ist. Wir haben Fred Buyle live zugeschaltet, die Legende eines Freitauchers mit unzähligen Weltrekorden, aber auch immer im Einsatz für den Meeresschutz. Und ich freue mich nachher auf einen besonderen Vortrag von Fred. Vielen Dank, dass du da bist. Und dann haben wir noch andere Gäste. Ali Hood vom Shark Trust in UK. Shark Trust ist Teil der Shark League, die zusammen mit SHARKPROJECT dieses Webinar veranstaltet. Und sie wird uns die etwas weniger schöne Seite, aber Realität verdeutlichen und hinterher auch erklären, um was es genau geht, was jeder Einzelne von uns tun kann, damit es nicht passiert, was wir angekündigt haben, dass es von 5 vor 12 auf, es ist zu spät, die Uhr umschlägt. Und dann haben wir noch einen Special Guest, der nicht als Speaker dabei ist, sondern einfach mit der Arbeit, die sie machen und für die sie weltweit bekannt sind. Wir bedanken uns ganz herzlich für die Unterstützung durch Behind the Mask. Und ich dachte mir, zur Einstimmung sehen wir jetzt mal einen ganz kurzen Clip mit ihrer Arbeit. Maria, würdest du uns das erste Video zeigen?
Feel it in your soul. Let me hear
30% aller Haiarten vom Aussterben bedroht. Und das innerhalb der nächsten Jahrzehnte. So stand es letztes Jahr zu lesen im UN-Biodiversitätsratsbericht. Eine erschütternde Perspektive und noch zudem, wenn man weiß, dass der Hauptgrund dafür die Fischerei der letzten 50 Jahre ist. Das heißt, die Haie sind weltweit bedroht. Uns geht es aber genau darum, das jetzt für Sie alle transparent zu machen und die Situation mal etwas näher zu beleuchten. Und dafür möchten wir Sie in diesem Webinar eben einladen, zuerst auf eine gemeinsame Tauchreise zu gehen mit Fred Buyle und dann von Ali Hood zu hören, was gerade vor unserer Haustür passiert und was passieren muss, damit es eben nicht so weit kommt, dass wir den Hauptdarsteller unseres Webinars heute Abend bald für immer verlieren könnten, vor unserer Haustür. Das Webinar wird so ablaufen, dass wir erst die Vorträge haben und dann wird uns Ali auch noch zeigen, was jeder von euch tun kann. Entschuldigung, jetzt bin ich wieder zum Sie zurückgegangen. Was ich aber auch noch schon mal vorweg sagen wollte, ist, dass jeder von euch da draußen, und ihr habt bestimmt viele, viele Fragen, bitte stellt sie uns. Wir haben Fred live hier, wir haben auch Sonja Geier vom Behind the Mask irgendwo da draußen. Sie wird bestimmt auch gerne zu ihrer Arbeit Fragen beantworten. Und wir können diese Fragen sowohl, oder ihr könnt diese Fragen sowohl auf den Question and Answer Button, den ihr seht, als auch im Chat. Und wenn ihr auf Facebook seid, dann könnt ihr sie auch da posten. Und wir werden alle zusammensuchen und dann hinterher versuchen, sie zu beantworten. Und wenn wir dann noch Zeit haben, können wir auch noch die Diskussion direkt live eröffnen, wenn ihr dazu Lust habt. Ja, so viel von mir zum Beginn. Bevor wir jetzt zu Fred wechseln, dachte ich, wir schauen uns noch mal etwas mehr von dieser faszinierenden Arbeit von Behind the Mask an. Und Behind the Mask, das kennt man eigentlich so von den Filmen, von der Footage, die sie machen, ist weltbekannt. Und Florian Fischer kennen wahrscheinlich auch die meisten von euch. Dass das aber ein ganzes Team ist von super engagierten Leuten, die das machen und jetzt auch in den Dienst des Umweltschutzes, des Meeresschutzes stellen. Das wissen vielleicht nicht alle von euch und die Bilder faszinieren nicht nur zum Mittauchen, sondern auch zum Aufrufen, was passieren muss. Maria, ich würde mich freuen, wenn du das nächste Video Nummer 2 spielen würdest.
Legend has it we could be legends, etched in the stone, forever on thrones. Histories made in the moments. Heroes collide, it's all on the line with our backs against the wall. We came to fight. There's no place to hide. Yeah, it's written all over the stars. Nothing will stop us against all the odds, but just like we promised, we came to fight, fight, fight. Yeah, we came to fight.
Amazing, isn't it? Blauhaie, hautnah. Faszinierend. Hochseehaie, ebenso wie der Makohai ein Hochseehai ist. Und doch bekommen wir sie selten zu Gesicht. Und dann ist es umso erschütternder zu sehen und zu hören, dass allen voran wir Europäer es wieder mal sind, die diese Tiere fangen, und zwar in riesigen Mengen, und damit riskieren, dass die Bestände zusammenbrechen. Bisher waren wir noch nicht mal beim Mako angekommen, aber dazu kommen wir jetzt dann, denn ich freue mich sehr, dass als nächster oder als erster Live-Gast hier bei uns Fred sprechen wird. Und zwar wird er uns mitnehmen auf seine Reise, die er vor vielen Jahren begonnen hat, in die Unterwasserwelt und mit uns seine Erlebnisse teilen. Fred ist Belgier und in Belgien geboren, kaltes Wasser, nicht so viele Haie direkt, die man sehen könnte, aber er war von Kindheit an vom Meer fasziniert. Und so war es eigentlich nicht verwunderlich, dass er dem Meer, dem Ozean sein Leben gewidmet hat. Er ist eine Legende als Freitaucher, mehrere Weltrekorde, er hat die 100-Meter-Marke unterschritten. Und er ist auch ein großer Meeresschützer. Für unzählige Wissenschaftler weltweit geht er freitauchend mit ihnen auf Tagging-Reise und taggt auch große Haie, ohne sie fangen zu müssen, ohne sie zu betäuben, sondern auf die schonendste Art, die möglich ist, und ermöglicht damit den Wissenschaftlern, ihre Wanderwege zu erforschen und sie so besser schützen zu können. Und er ist begeistert von diesen Tieren. Und diese Begeisterung, die stellt er auch uns zur Verfügung. Und er ist ein langjähriger Partner, darf ich sagen. Und ich freue mich sehr darüber von Shark Project in vielen Projekten. Und wir freuen uns sehr, ihn heute bei uns zu haben. Vielen Dank. Fred, I'm looking forward to your presentation, and I'm sure we all be amazed to find out what you have to tell us and to share your experiences underwater and with this fascinating animal, the short fin mako shark, with us. Thank you so much. Handing over to you.
Thank you, Iris. Okay, so hello everybody. I would like to thank you for attending this webinar for a very important cause. Of course, if you attend the webinar, you're probably already aware of the problem. That's kind of always the problem with these things, is that we reach people that already know about the problem. So the idea is to get that to a more wider audience, of course. So maybe after that webinar, you can share it on your social media or whatever you channel you might have, or mailing list amongst your friends who are not probably as interested in the underwater world as you are, but to try to reach the widest audience possible. So let me give you a bit of my background. So like I said, I was born in Belgium, 1972. So when that famous movie, Jaws, was out, I was 4 years old. You know, that movie that started all with that giant shark was eating people, boats, even helicopter at some point. So as a kid, I was totally fascinated by that movie and the sharks. I was not afraid. I don't know why at that time, but I was not afraid. And I always wanted to know more and more about the sharks. So I started diving and snorkeling when I was 6, 7 years old. By the age of 10, I was freediving and spearfishing. And I could dive with my first shark when I was 13 years old. It was a small black-tip shark in Indonesia. Came across him on the corner of a reef. And I was as surprised as that animal was. And somehow he was even more scared than I was. And then my mind started to think about these encounters. And that in fact sharks are not dangerous animals. They're just curious. And as any wild animal, you have to treat them with respect. And throughout the years, I was diving more and more often with more and more species of sharks. And then I could dive with my first bigger shark, then my first tiger shark, like 20 years ago. And then so on. In 2007, I started free dive with great white sharks. And but the Mako shark came a bit later, because in fact it's a very difficult shark to observe, because his realm is offshore in the open ocean. So it's not places where we dive often, and also it's blue desert, so you never know where to look for these sharks. And when I moved to the Azores in 2012, I was starting to spend more and more time in the offshore water of the northern Atlantic. And then, of course, I started to encounter Mako sharks. And Of course, it's very rare encounter, but they're absolutely amazing animals. And the first time you see a Mako shark, you see it's a very, very different animal than the other sharks. The reason for that is really a top predator, is a hunter. His behavior is a bit like the great white shark. He's trying to ambush and run to his prey. So when you see them appearing during an offshore dive, it's always a very special moment because they look more nervous, more, I don't like the word aggressive, but they are very edgy. They have a very edgy personality. Usually the encounter never lasts long. They stay a few seconds, at the most a few minutes. And when the curiosity is satisfied, they're gone like they arrived. They appeared and disappear from nowhere. So very interesting animal. And of course, the nature of his habitat and his behavior makes him very vulnerable to the longliners because even though he was not a real target before, he became a target from the fisheries when the saltfish fisheries and the tuna fisheries declined, because that's how all the blue sharks and Mako shark gets fished. Basically, it's because the fisheries is targeting other species. It was a bycatch, but now it's like the main animal. An interesting story this year with the COVID. The longliners were not active around the Azores from March to June. And I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but this summer we had a lot of sharks, more than usual. We got back to the level of shark we had during a dive like almost 10 years ago. And we saw a lot of Mako sharks this year. So I don't know if it's a coincidence because of the reduction of the fisheries pressure, but we had a very good year for sharks. And since a month now, the Spanish longliners are back. We see them on a weekly basis, 2 or 3 boats offloading sharks here in Ota. We see a lot of blue sharks and Mako sharks out of the boats to get into containers to be shipped back to the mainland. As most of you know, there's no quota rules on these sharks, so basically what they do is totally legal. So the situation is quite serious in the mid-Atlantic. On my side, my approach is very down to earth. My background is freediving, of course. I've been an athlete for many years, and then I went into photography. When I went into photography, I had to look for topics and stories. And of course, shark conservation came very quickly in the mix. And that's how I started 15 years ago to work with scientists. And my work evolved also to help scientists on the field and be part of the research, helping them, for example, to tag or to get a DNA sample from the sharks. And that's how, since all these years, I'm involved in a lot of papers, reading all the papers, and try to have an idea of the situation. But the difference between scientists and I is that probably have a bit of an outside vision of the story. I don't just focus on the numbers and the result of the story, but try to see the big picture. And for me, the shark problem in the oceans, and particularly in the Northern Atlantic, is of course dramatic. But for me, it's more the symptom of our way of life. And that's the main problem. We try to solve a problem, all these overfishing and shark fisheries, that's just a symptom of our way of life. So I think if we want to solve these issues, we need to think much forward than what we do at the moment, and solve the problem on a global level and in the way we function as a species and as a human society. I think also amongst people who protect sharks and protect the environment, there's some kind of cognitive dissonance. Because, okay, we protect sharks, but we still travel a lot. We protect sharks, but we drive a car. And all these things, although they seem very far away from the shark problem, they're all part of that problem. So if we want to find solution, we need to see it more as a global problem and find global solution. But to come back to the shark conservation, I think the only thing we can do is to put pressure, of course, on our political leaders that can change the policies, and also to reach the general audience, like I said at the beginning of the presentation. I think that's how we're going to reach the goal, because a lot of people don't know about these topics. So our role is to bring that to the general media, and to have a critical mass that will be able to push for better policies, and of course to have people stop consuming shark products, and also products that that are causing the problem with the sharks, which means offshore fish and open ocean fish like tuna, swordfish, and all that. So it's a very complex problem. But I'm positive we can, of course, do something to change a bit the course. But it's a big effort. So please talk about that all around your circle of friends and people you know. It's very important. So that's what I would say. To try to stay brief and not take too much time for that. After we'll have some question and answers, so don't hesitate if you have any question, practical question about how you can make a difference, or also what is it like to dive with these sharks. If you have really specific questions, don't hesitate to ask after in the second part of this webinar. We will answer you. So thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of that initiative, and let's keep up the good work. Thanks.
Fred, thank you so much. I'm just a bit confused, and I have to ask you, we couldn't see any of your wonderful pictures. You wanted to share them with us, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it worked, so let's try that again.
I couldn't see anything, so I'm not sure about anybody else out there.
Okay, let's try
because it started sharing the screen and then it stopped again. Okay, now we see something.
Yes, now it works. Okay.
All right.
So here are some picture of the Mako sharks. You can see it's really torpedo shaped. They're made for open water, for open ocean. Like you mentioned, they're the fastest shark in the ocean. They can outrun anything. They can catch marlins, small dolphins, anything. It's a torpedo is really the top predator of the Northern Atlantic. Very impressive animal, and always a pleasure to dive with them. Although it's a very difficult shark to observe, probably one of the most elusive species of the Northern Atlantic. And I probably have a little clip. Yes, we have a little clip with some footage free diving with these amazing Mako sharks.
It's not running, Fred?
It's not running because it's running on my screen. Is it running now? No.
No.
Okay.
I think you might have to stop sharing and then...
Let's try again.
Okay, yeah. And start it and then share.
Okay, is it working now?
Not yet.
No.
I think you need to start it and then share. Now click on it. Yes, click on it.
It works?
Not yet, no.
Okay. It worked 10 minutes ago, but of course.
No, technology.
Of technology. Anyway, amazing animals. And yeah, let me try one more time.
Just click on it. You have to click on that when it stopped. Now click on it, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, no.
Because it starts on my computer, it's playing perfectly well. So
I mean, maybe I can just ask Sophie, or somebody could help with the technique.
No, but I think it's okay.
Okay.
I will maybe send it to Sophie.
Let's do a deal here. You'll try while we have the other discussions, and maybe when you get it to work, we'll just jump over to you, because I think...
No, but it works on my computer, so...
Jesus, okay. Thank you so much, Fred, and I'm really... I mean, those pictures are amazing. It's fascinating to see them and to know you've been in the water just on that short distance, and I've been lucky enough to see the video before. It's really, really amazing. Unfortunately, I've never been that lucky. I've never seen a Mako shark. And as it may be, I may never be able to see one. Because as I said, and you just confirmed, that they are hard to see. And as we know, they are getting, or they're becoming less and less. Unfortunately. But we are doing something against it. And just to bring us back to what we are trying to communicate here to that big community out there, and I'm just seeing there's people from all over the world joining in. I would like to ask Maria to play the final clip from Behind the Mask we've prepared for you, so that you see some live footage again before we hand over then to Ali.
No, I think let's go to Ali now, and then we try to solve that in the background. It will be much more.
Fred, we have another clip, not yours. You solve that in the background, and then we go to Ali. Thank you so much for being with us, Fred. And as Fred said, he's going to be available for question and answers later on. So don't hesitate to already type in your questions into the question and answer session. Zurück auf Deutsch. Vielen Dank an Fred Buyle nochmal. Und es tut mir sehr leid, dass das mit dem Video nicht geklappt hat. Er hat ein super schönes Video dabei, wo er hautnah mit den Makos freitauchend ist. Wir hoffen, dass wir das irgendwie noch hinbekommen, dass es vielleicht nachher doch noch zu sehen ist. Ansonsten bitte ich um Entschuldigung, Technik ist nicht immer das, was man von ihr erwartet. Nichtsdestoweniger, wir haben noch einen wunderschönen dritten Clip für Sie von Behind the Mask, und den würde ich Maria jetzt bitten, uns zu zeigen.
We've been hiding in the shadows. We've been biding our time. We've been running from the devil, just trying to make it out alive. We don't have to run, be afraid no more. When the thunder comes, we won't fear the storm. Can you hear the drums beating louder than before?
Ja, it's make or break for Mako. So habe ich angefangen. Es ist höchste Zeit, jetzt was zu tun, weil sonst verlieren wir diese faszinierenden Tiere, die so extrem wichtig für das Ökosystem im Meer sind. Und wie ich vorhin schon erwähnte, es ist leider allen voran die EU-Flotten, die den größten Anteil davon im Atlantik fangen. Aber das heißt auch, dass es die EU ist, die etwas dagegen tun kann, die das ändern kann, wenn wir jetzt alle aufstehen und sagen, wir wollen diese Art retten. Wir wollen verhindern, dass sie ausstirbt im Atlantik vor unserer Haustür. Vielen Dank nochmal an Behind the Mask für diese wunderschönen Clips und an Fred für die Zusammenfassung seiner Erfahrung, seiner Arbeit. Wir versuchen es nach dem nächsten Vortrag nochmal, ob wir das Video jetzt zu laufen bekommen. Wir haben noch einen Hinweis bekommen, vielleicht hilft der, dass wir das mit dem Sharing hinbekommen. Wir versuchen es nochmal. Auf jeden Fall auch an die deutsche Gemeinde, wenn ihr Fragen habt an Fred, an Behind the Mask oder nachher dann auch an Ali natürlich, bitte schreibt diese kräftig in den Chat oder noch besser in die Question and Answer Session, dann können wir die nachher live beantworten. Ja, damit von der Faszination von Freitauchen, vom Taggen von Haien zu dem Problem, das wir im Atlantik vor unserer Haustür tatsächlich haben. Und ich freue mich sehr, dass Ali Hood vom Shark Trust jetzt unser nächster Gast ist und sie macht sich schon bereit für ihren Vortrag, den sie mit uns teilen will. Ali ist seit über 20 Jahren aktiv im Haischutz als Umweltschutz, Meeresschutzorganisation tätig. Und obwohl der Shark Trust, wie der Name schon sagt, natürlich eine UK-Organisation ist, war sie immer sehr stark in Policy Making, also in RFMOs, das sind die regionalen Fischereimanagementorganisationen und insbesondere die vor unserer Haustür, das ICAT, involviert, hat sich eingesetzt, hat versucht eben dort für den Haischutz aufzustehen und das Beste rauszuholen. Und auch wenn UK leider, muss man sagen, die EU jetzt verlassen wird, Ali und Shark Trust sind nach wie vor aktiv dabei und es kennt sich keine besser aus. Nicht nur, was mit dem Mako passiert, sondern gerade auch, was momentan im ICAT, und das ist das verantwortliche Fischereimanagementorganisation für den Atlantik, passiert oder was viel mehr passieren müsste. Ein Leben für den Haischutz, ebenso wie Fred sein Leben dem Meer und der Faszination für diese Tiere und ihren Schutz gewidmet hat, so tut es Ali auf der politischen Ebene. Ali, I'm really glad to have you here. Handing over to you to tell us about what's the problem with the Mako in the Atlantic and especially with ICAT, what needs to happen here. And I've just told our audience that the EU takes most of the pelagic sharks, including the Mako. But it's also up to the EU to make a difference now. Over to you, Ali. Very happy to have you.
Thank you, Iris. So I'm just going to share my screen, make sure that that's functioning properly. Can everyone see my first slide? Yes? Marvelous. So thank you very much, Iris. And yes, my name is Ali Hood. I'm Director of Conservation for the Shark Trust and a partner of the Shark League for the Atlantic and Mediterranean, who are also co-hosts of this evening's event. And thank you all very much for attending to learn more about this magnificent species. So far this evening, we've been privileged to share some of the incredible shark encounters, the footage and the photographs captured by Behind the Mask and Fred Buyle, with some particularly rare footage of Makos, a species not often caught on camera by divers. I would like to now dive into, excuse me for seeing how my slides progress, dive into the issues and the concerns surrounding tonight's focal species, the short-fin Mako. And as we've seen from Fred's images and hopefully from the footage to come, it's truly one of nature's wonders, the fastest shark in the sea, but unfortunately a species that encapsulates the disastrous impact of fishing with no limits. The dangerous decline of Atlantic short-fin Mako sees the Shark League and colleagues tackling one of the world's most pressing conservation crises. And the Shark League has been promoting and tracking support from Atlantic fishing nations for urgently needed science-based catch limits to save this endangered species. So why is this such an urgent problem? Well, as Fred was discussing just a moment ago, Mako are long-lived species. They mature late, with lengthy gestations and producing a very limited number of pups. And in March 2019, the IUCN classified the shortfin Mako as globally endangered, meaning they face a very high risk of extinction in the wild. The shortfin Mako is one of the world's most economically valuable sharks, sought globally for its meat, fins, and for sport fishing. And for more than a decade, scientists have warned that slow growth rates make the Makos exceptionally vulnerable to overfishing. This global oceanic species is fished by many nations and taken in high seas fisheries managed by regional fisheries management organizations, the RFMOs. Yet no international catch limits have been agreed. And because of concern over their precarious state, both the shortfin and the longfin Mako were listed on CITES Appendix 2 in August 2019. The Atlantic high seas fisheries are managed under the purview of the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas, or ICAT. ICAT comprises 53 parties, including the EU, and covers an immense sea area as illustrated on this map. The member organizations of the Shark League are observers to ICAT, and we work to inform and influence the parties for the benefit of science-based shark conservation. Yet Makos have been plagued for decades of unheeded warnings and inaction, which I'd like to briefly illustrate. And for those interested, the timeline that I'm using along the top of this graph or this slide can be found in the 2019 Shark League ICAT fact sheet on the Shark League website. In 2008, ICAT scientists produced some long-standing advice for sharks, recommending management measures for species with the greatest biological vulnerability, and noting that landings prohibitions could be effective for species with high long-line survivorship. It's really important to note here that shortfin Mako survivorship, when released at the side of vessel, is up to 77%. Since then, ICAT has prohibited retention of big-eyed thresher, oceanic whitetips, most hammerheads, and silky sharks, as marked on the graphic there by those orange stars. Yet despite shortfin Mako ranking first among 20 pelagic shark stocks for vulnerability to ICAT fisheries, and third overall in the 2012 ICAT ecological risk assessment, they continue to be fished without limits. In 2017, ICAT scientists undertook a stock assessment for shortfin Mako with really sobering results. This Kobe plot here, the graph in front of you, you can clearly see how that stock is sitting in that red quartile, and this is not a good place to be by any means. Mako in the North Atlantic indicated a 90% chance that they were being overfished, and that overfishing continues. The 2017 advice was extremely clear. If the Commission wishes to stop overfishing immediately and achieve rebuilding by 2040 with over a 50% probability, the most effective immediate measure is a complete prohibition on retention. And the results at ICAT was the adoption of a measure which actually continued to permit the retention of dead Makos through a number of exceptions, doing nothing to incentivize the avoidance of this vulnerable species. In 2018, ICAT failed to make time for Makos almost at all, with Mako barely making the agenda of the annual meeting. But in 2019, ICAT scientists reconsidered the stock projections, and the dire state of the North Atlantic Mako was truly reinforced. This graph illustrates the probability of recovery under different fishing pressures. The green line on the graph, that's situated at the top of that stack of colours there, illustrates the probability of recovery under different fishing pressures. And there is a yellow dotted horizontal line which indicates 70% probability. And this is the 70% probability of success of recovery. And you'll note that even under zero mortality, it would take nearly 45 years to have a 70% probability of recovery. And current levels of fishing pressure do not even register on this graph. So what does the 2019 science demonstrate? Well, there is a clear recognition that the 2017 recommendation is not effective and will not halt overfishing, let alone allow rebuilding. That the scientific advice remains intact, that they need to adopt a non-retention policy for North Atlantic Mako without exception. And what does the fishing pressure look like then? Who is catching Mako? And what ICAP parties are championing Mako? What can we do now to address this conservation emergency? And it's an emergency that will already take decades to repair. So this graph is an illustration from the landings data for 2017, 2018. Around the outside, you can see those parties to ICAT who have been fishing. And just last night, the latest data was released by ICAT, so excuse this slightly rapid graph, but you can see here that the orange color on the graph is Spain, the green color is Portugal. And if we go back to the previous slide, the EU member states were responsible for over 60% of the landings over the past 5 years. And this position has not changed in recent times. So the total catch in the Atlantic for 2019 was over 1,000 tons. I'm sorry, the way the slides come up on the screen, it blocks the text that you can see. So the total catch was in excess of 1,800 tons. And if we go on to the graph that I showed you previously, you'll note that the ICAT scientists did not project above 1,100 tons. And that's the red line at the bottom of this graph that is basically flatlining. At the current fishing pressure, that population is just going to continue to decline. But this also indicates why we are so focused on the EU. The EU here can be seen to be taking the lion's share of the landings, responsible for over 60% of the landings. And indeed, Portugal's share has increased, both in tonnage and in percentage share. In fact, the EU has the highest Mako landings in the world, and yet has set no catch limits on the species outside of the Mediterranean. Spain in particular, as you can see from the graph, takes more Mako sharks than any other country and is responsible for nearly half of the North Atlantic catch alone. To make matters worse, the EU uses the lack of ICAT catch limits as an excuse to delay the setting of an EU quota, despite being a co-sponsor of the proposal to list Makos under CITES. So inaction by the EU in turn hinders political will in other countries. The EU's major role in the North Atlantic Mako depletion brings responsibility to take the lead in reversing declines. Failure to take the first step of basic limits on catch, while presenting itself as a champion of ocean conservation, smacks of hypocrisy. And it is vital that the EU honours its global commitments. It heeds scientific advice and works to secure immediate domestic and international bans on North Atlantic Mako fishing. So what is the remedy? Well, given the scientific advice, this would seem clear. ICAT can adopt, either by consensus or by vote, the advice its scientists have given for preventing the collapse of North Atlantic Makos, completely prohibit retention and work to minimise post-release mortality. In the meantime, CITES parties, which does include all ICAT parties, are required to demonstrate that Mako exports and landings from the high seas are sourced from legal, sustainable fisheries. Yet EU member state evidence in the form of what's known as non-detriment findings are not in the public domain. There is a significant lack of transparency on these issues. So who is championing Mako in the face of EU's opposition? Well, at the ICAT 2019 annual meeting last November, Senegal and Canada led an initiative to establish the science-based short-fin Mako limits advised by the scientists. It's fantastic. Their proposal was co-sponsored by the Gambia, Gabon, Panama, Liberia, Guatemala, Angola, El Salvador, and Egypt, and supported by the 2019 ICAT annual meeting through floor statements from Norway, Guinea-Bissau, Uruguay, Japan, China, and Taiwan. The level of support for this proposal was significant. But this joint science-based Mako proposal was opposed in 2019 by the European Union, the United States, and Curacao. These parties pushed exceedingly complex counter proposals that fell far short of scientific advice, allowing hundreds of tons of Mako to be landed. The US Curacao proposal even permitted continued killing of Makos that make it to the boat alive. This is furthermore emphasised by the fact we're aware that for 2020, the landings of sharks by Spain as a member state, if you recall, they already had the dominant catch, already exceed a level that would allow recovery of Mako, just Spain alone, within the next 50 years. So what do? We have some champions, we have the obstacles, and we as the Shark League have been engaging parties to ICAT throughout the past 12 months since the last meeting of the ICAT parties in November 2019. We have our ICAT pledge document. We are calling on parties to see if their country is on the map, to show their dedication to the scientific advice by following this pledge and getting their country on this map. And I really encourage you to visit the Shark League website, sharkleague.org, and look at this pledge document. It's available in a number of languages, and see what you can do to pressure other countries to get themselves onto that map. But it isn't just about, it's not just about other parties. So each and every party, regardless of its Mako landings, is important for securing an ICAT agreement stringent enough to save Makos. And while the EU may act as a single party at ICAT, we need EU member states to speak out individually, to influence the EU's position, its mandate, ahead of ICAT, and to recognise that science should sit at the heart of shark conservation, that the wishes of 2 member states, Spain and Portugal, should not undermine the conservation credentials of the other 25 member states. And importantly, to recognise that there is a gap left by the UK's exit from the EU. The UK was an undeniably vocal member state and was willing to stick to the scientific position and urge other member states to speak out. And we now need new champions, and Germany, the current EU president, and often a champion of sharks in other fora, is really well placed to step up. Ending overfishing of sharks and rays requires sustained action by all relevant government agencies, conservationists, and the public. An alignment and collaboration between governments and environmental and fisheries agencies is essential. The EU champions sharks at CITES, champion Mako specifically at CITES, and we now need the EU to stop hindering progress and start to follow the science in the North Atlantic. We have been calling on member states in correspondence, in person, as scientists, as conservationists, as passionate shark fans. So tonight, we're asking you to join us in a call to action. Collectively, we can emphasize this message to the European Commissioner, calling on him to follow the science and become an active part in safeguarding the future of this exceptionally vulnerable species. You can find this link on all of our social media platforms and in the chat. It's a very simple process, a click to tweet. And you can help us generate the critical mass that Fred mentioned earlier, making sure that this issue is something that the European Commissioner cannot ignore. In a moment, Iris will also tell you specifically how you can encourage the German government to step up and be that vocal champion for Makos within the European Commission that we require. So before I hand back to Iris, I just need to acknowledge a few people. I'd like to thank our funders, the Shark Conservation Fund, the co-hosts and fellow speakers, Shark Project, Behind the Mask, and Fred Buyle, and you, the audience, for supporting our call to action and for getting your friends, your family, your co-workers to also support this call to action. It is incredibly important. And I particularly like to thank my Shark League colleagues, many of whom will be listening here tonight. And I'd like to thank them for the excellent publications that you can find on our website and on which I have drawn very heavily tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali. Thanks for that intriguing presentation and sharing your insight and knowledge with us. And it's frustrating to hear what's happening, that EU is seeing what happens and just ignoring it and refraining from taking action. And I hope we can change that together. And what I would propose is I just do a quick summary for our German audience so that they are aware you were speaking very clearly and easy to understand, but still it's been a lot of information and then it always gets tricky. So just to make sure everybody's on the same page, and especially with your tweet, you showed us what needs to be done. So please stay in the call because we have questions for you, and I'm already seeing there's questions coming in via chat and question and answers, and we'll have a lot to do afterwards. And Fred, good to see you back here. I would also, please, can we see afterwards your pictures again? They were too fast. Some people said they couldn't really appreciate them, so we'd love to see them again. And maybe we can then also try to see the video. And somebody mentioned in the chat that you have to do it differently, like not share the screen or not share part of the screens, but the whole screen. So maybe we can sort that out, but let me summarize for the German-speaking audience first, please. Ja, meine lieben Taucher und Meeresfreunde, nach diesem Vortrag von Ali Hood sind wir wahrscheinlich alle sehr erschüttert, hoffentlich aber auch aufgewühlt. Weil genau das ist es, was wir erreichen möchten. Dass wir nämlich gemeinsam Take Action machen. Und dazu hat sie uns auch aufgerufen. Und ich versuche jetzt gerade ein Bild zu zeigen. Ich jetzt gerade nicht. Sorry. Here we go. Das ist der Tweet auf Deutsch. Für alle, die das nochmal vielleicht lieber sich auf Deutsch auch ansehen wollen, bevor sie dann einfach draufklicken und das absenden. Aber nochmal kurz zusammenfassend. Die Situation ist mehr wie ernst. Wir werden diese Art, diesen faszinierenden Hochseehai verlieren im Atlantik vor unserer Haustüre, wenn jetzt nichts passiert. Und es ist nicht so, dass, das hat uns Ali sehr eindrucksvoll gezeigt, dass wir das erst seit heute wissen. Seit 2017 warnen die Wissenschaftler. Jedes Jahr haben sie gewarnt und gesagt, es muss was passieren. Und es ist nichts passiert. Spanien und Portugal sind die beiden Fangnationen, die den größten Anteil haben am Bycatch von Mako. Denn natürlich ist es offiziell so, dass er nicht mehr gefangen werden soll. Aber er hängt halt mit an den Langleinen, wie uns Fred auch vorhin schon erklärt hat. Und dann ist es fast unvermeidbar, dass man ihn auch mit reinholt. Die Frage ist nur, kann man Geld damit verdienen, ihn anzulanden? Oder lässt man ihn lieber wieder frei? Und viele überleben das. Eine Überlebenswahrscheinlichkeit von über 70%, wenn es richtig gemacht wird, hat uns Ali gerade nochmal auch erläutert. Das heißt, es lohnt sich, für diesen Hai einzustehen. Er hat eine Chance, aber er braucht unsere Hilfe. Und es ist jetzt die letzte Chance, wirklich was zu tun, denn die Fangzahlen vom letzten Jahr, die gestern veröffentlicht wurden, sprechen eine deutliche Sprache. Es liegt wieder über dem, was die Wissenschaftler voraussagen, das irgendwie tolerabel ist, und zwar weit darüber. Deswegen ist es kurz vor 12, die EU muss handeln. Und deswegen tweetet bitte alle diesen Tweet und der kommt jetzt dann in den Chat rein, der wird auch auf Facebook für euch alle sein. Der ist auch auf der Shark Project Twitter-Seite, sowohl in Englisch als auch in Deutsch und auch auf der Seite vom Shark Trust, so für die Englischsprachigen, das hatte Ali gerade gesagt. Tweetet, retweetet diesen Call to Action an die EU. Wir brauchen sofort dieses Jahr, auch wenn ICAT nicht als Meeting stattfindet, einen Fangstopp für den Mako. Und Fangstopp, nochmal im Deutschen ist das ein bisschen schwieriger zu erklären. Fangstopp heißt eigentlich, er darf nicht mehr angelandet werden, er darf nicht irgendwie über Transshipment auf andere Boote und dann in anderen Ländern angelandet werden, sondern jeder Hai, der gefangen wird, tot oder lebendig, muss zurück ins Meer. Nur dann ist das Incentive weg, dass man damit Geld verdienen kann. Und erst dann werden wir versuchen können, ihn besser zu schützen und damit zu retten. Tweeten, tweeten, tweeten. Make or break for Makos. Und wie Ali auch schon angekündigt hat, wir Deutschen, uns kommt noch eine ganz besondere Rolle zu. Und es ist eigentlich sehr, sehr traurig, dass wir gerade Deutschland, wir haben jetzt die EU-Präsidentschaft. Den letzten seit Juni bis Ende des Jahres, also ein halbes Jahr. Und in unserer Amtsperiode wird es passieren, dass wir sozusagen das Todesurteil für diese Spezies besiegeln, wenn jetzt nichts geschieht. Und die Deutschen haben in der EU-Delegation, oder ich muss besser sagen, sie hätten einen richtig großen Einfluss, wenn sie den nutzen würden. Bisher aber schweigt Deutschland. Viele deutsche NGOs haben gemeinsam einen Brief an die Bundesregierung, an Frau Klöckner bzw. ihre Referatsleitung und auch die Referatsleitung des Bundesumweltministeriums geschickt und sie gebeten, einzustehen für den Schutz dieser Art. Bisher keine Reaktion. Deswegen wollen wir auch an die Bundesrepublik unseren Call setzen. Und ihr seht hier auf der Folie mit dem wunderschönen Bild von Fred, es lohnt sich, wir müssen was tun. Deutschland kann jetzt den Unterschied machen. Lasst es die entsprechenden Verantwortlichen, Julia Klöckner, Svenja Schulze und auch Frau von der Leyen, wissen, dass wir, die deutsche Bevölkerung, diesen Hai gerettet sehen wollen. Und es muss was passieren. Das wäre mein Schlusswort in dieser Hinsicht, aber natürlich nicht Schlusswort, sondern wir wollen ja noch diskutieren. Und ich habe schon gesagt, wir haben ganz viele Fragen. Auch diese Informationen hier, wo ihr diesen Brief finden könnt, auch das lassen wir euch alles noch zukommen. Auf SHARKPROJECT-Seite oder auch im Nachgang zu diesem Zoom-Webinar. Zurück an meine Sprecher von heute Abend. Wir wollen gemeinsam die Fragen beantworten. Und ich versuche einfach mal, was wir dann zusammen finden und wir werden auch hinterher noch einfach dann das Mikrofon übergeben, weil ich sehe, es kommen immer mehr rein und zum Teil sind die auch sehr lange. But Fred, let me please ask you, before we go into question and answers, could you show us your amazing shark pictures again? I need to motivate people to fight for this amazing shark in order to guarantee his survival, or at least give him a chance. And if you could also manage to share the video, let's try it. If it doesn't work, then technology is the winner, but let's try it. We fight for the Mako and for the video.
Yes, let's try that. Is it working now?
It's working, Fred. Great.
Very short clip.
Very short, but very amazing. And as you say, just take water, a camera, some light, I believe, and one single breath of air, not more, not less. And it's amazing to get these pictures, really. Thank you so much for that. And maybe we also can see the other two pictures you showed again, because also people said they would like to appreciate them again. They were also wonderful.
Okay.
I'm going to look for the first question.
You have them now?
Yes. Where did you take that picture?
In fact, all these Mako pictures are from the southern Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And this one as well, from the southern Atlantic?
Oh. Yes. Okay. All my Mako pictures are from the southern Atlantic. It's the same animal.
It's the same animal. We didn't talk about that. The stock are not as terribly depleted in the south as in the north, but also their scientists project that a similar situation will soon occur if we don't take action there as well. But don't want to distract from the call here. It is make or break for Mako. We need an immediate retention ban in the North Atlantic. Einen kompletten Fangstopp, Anlandeverbot im Nordatlantik ist das, was wir brauchen. Auch wenn wir gerade ein bisschen abgeschweift sind, dass es im Südatlantik nicht viel besser ausschaut und Fred uns gerade gesagt hat, dass seine wunderbaren Bilder eigentlich alle im Südatlantik entstanden sind. Vielen Dank. Thank you so much for sharing these pictures with us and your experience. And I think we go into the question and answers, and I'm trying to find all I have and direct them to the speakers. So I will start with the question and answer section where we have people had been feeding that in. And actually, it's interesting. They're all in English, so I hope I can ask them in English. And it's okay if the answer comes in English, but please, audience, if you'd like to have it translated, let me know and I'm happy to do that. So the first question is to Fred from Nina. Fred, how do sharks react to tagging? Is there a difference between the different species when you tag them? How do they react? Do they like it or what do they do?
So, of course, it depends on the type of tagging we do. You know, when we use freediving, usually it's a less invasive way of tagging because we don't need to fish out the animal out of the water to fix a tag, and so it's a better process for the animal. But most of the time for satellite tags or acoustic tagging, we use a spear gun. So basically it's a modified spear gun that's not very powerful, but just powerful enough to put a little dart under the skin of the animal so it can carry the tag. And of course, like every animal on this planet, if you shoot at him a little dart in his skin, he will run away. So they all run away as soon as you tag them. But most of them, they turn around quickly and they come back like nothing happened. And usually the bigger the shark is, the less they react. So if you tag a small blue shark or a small hammerhead shark, there's a lot of chance he won't come back. But when you tag a very big great white shark, he doesn't even glitch a bit and stay around with his tag. So it depends. And since a few years, we've started to do totally non-invasive tagging that we tag by hand. We use that for blue sharks and Mako sharks. We finally could tag a Mako shark like that this year. So it's a kind of color we pass around the head of the shark. And the tag, it's for bigger tag with a lot of sensor and even a camera. And the tag stays only 12 to 24 hours. Then there's a link that dissolves and the camera and the tag floats back to the surface. So that's very non-invasive. And that's the type of tagging we try to use now. So I hope that answers the question. But usually the animal is not super stressed by the tagging process.
Thanks, Fred, for that explanation. And Nina, I hope that answers your questions. And I mean, also for us as NGOs, obviously, this type of tagging is much more preferred because we don't want to harm the animal. We just want to learn